what do you hope that DJs, producers who are listening to this conversation walk away with? What's the most important thing?
It's very hard to get your songs licensed, but it's really about having as many lottery tickets as you can, right? So if you just keep creating more songs, then that ups your chances.
I do not care who you are, how much you think you can handle, how big of a badass you think you are. Touring forever and ever as an artist is not a sustainable lifestyle. And that's why if you want to make DJing and producing your full-time thing, you have to find alternate revenue streams. Like, I guarantee you, any artist you look up to is probably doing some stuff on the side with music that you have no idea about, like sync licensing. I am ecstatic about my guest today, Celia Rose. She's an artist. She's the co-founder of What Up Pitches, a boutique sync licensing agency. And today we're breaking down what sync licensing is, how to write for sync, how to get started. Guys, Celia told me that she just scored an $80,000 placement for a client, and my jaw literally dropped. This is possible for you guys. You have to understand, this is an accessible and very viable avenue for you as a producer. So take a listen and share with another producer friend who may also find this helpful. Celia, I am so excited for you to be joining me. You are the co-founder of What Up Pitches. You are also a musician yourself. I'm so excited to have this conversation because what we're going to talk about today is an area of the music business that not a lot of people in the DJ world know about. So thank you for spending some time with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey with What Up Pitches and what Up Pitches is specifically.
Okay. So What Up Pitches is a music production house and a sync licensing agency. So we do custom music for projects for TV, film, and ads across all media. We also curate a catalog of songs, mainly one-stop from indie artists who are based internationally. So we work mostly with smaller artists who are self-published or with smaller publishing, companies, or small labels. And, so I'm one of the co-founders. My two partners are both two women who are based in LA. Pepe Chung is a composer who's been doing that for over 20 years. TV film composer, has done tons of projects. And she is also a professional mixer for, Lionsgates, Discovery, across the board. And, Mariela is originally from Costa Rica. She is also a singer-songwriter. She's the head of our Latin department. She sings in both English and Spanish. And so she helps us to curate that Latin department. And my personal journey is as a singer-songwriter. I came to this doing folk rock music for many years. I used to tour professionally, mainly throughout Africa, actually as a cultural ambassador for the State Department. And then I had several albums out, and then I had 3 children and decided that doing lots of late night gigs and touring wasn't something that I wanted to be doing as much anymore. And so I was just curious about sync licensing and how I could get my own songs, placed. And so at that point, I just sort of did a dive into education for myself and learning about what it was and how to go about getting my own songs licensed. And that's how I met my partners and wound up co-founding What Up Pitches.
Yeah, I want to get into in a little bit. You said something key there about having kids, having a family, realizing that lifestyle is not necessarily conducive to all those things. And so this is a really great opportunity for artists who, for one reason or another, may want to slow down on the touring and, being gone all the time, a revenue generating opportunity for them. And we'll get into all of that. But one thing that I have found so interesting in just starting to have conversations with my artist friends in the dance music world is this is an area of the music business that they do not know a lot about. So what do you hope that DJs, producers who are listening to this conversation walk away with? What's the most important thing?
It's very hard to get your songs licensed, but it's really about having as many lottery tickets as you can, right? So if you just keep creating more songs, then that ups your chances. So I would say keep creating and doing what you're good at and being authentic to who you are, because people want to know, they're going to go to you for this sound. So that if you're really great at a certain sound, then, be true to that. You can always spread out and do other stuff, but like, it's good to know, okay, I really want to go to this person for that. And then just sort of establish yourself, make a name for yourself in that. And then just get to know who the licensing agents are, the different organizations that are out there. What a pitch is a boutique licensing agency. It's not going to be the right fit for everybody. So you do need to do your research, and before you go knocking on the door and saying, hey, sign all my stuff, why should we sign your stuff? Is it the right fit for us? And so you need to get to know what is the kind of stuff that we're placing. And
right.
Just to touch on that a little bit. So we tend not to sign instrumental tracks only, which in this case, I'm assuming a lot of, these composers maybe only do instrumental tracks.
Sometimes there's a lot of DJs who collaborate with vocalists too. So, especially for, there's so many different subgenres of house music. There's melodic house, there's progressive house. Both tend to have, always have some sort of, vocal. So really the genres are just, there's so many of them. And so because I want to get into that, but can you just explain maybe for someone who's never heard of this before, because you're almost like, I feel like this phrase has a negative connotation, but it's not. You're kind of like a middleman. You're the way that they can get their music to the people. You can't just walk up to, Lionsgate and be like, here's my music, play it.
Yeah, it's true. People come to us because they trust that we know that the music in our catalog is pre-cleared and safe for them to place and use. And so that's why when we work with an artist, we educate them. We know to ask the right questions, right? We need to know who owns the master, who owns the publishing, and who are the writers. Is there a split sheet signed among you all? If you had someone come in, is there a work for hire contract that you signed so that it's not going to come back and bite you or us, later on? Also, do you have, if it's a vocal track, do you have the instrumental track already bounced and mastered at the same level as the vocal track? Do you have the stems? Are they ready to go in case, that's needed? So these are some of the main things. Do you have a PRO who you're registered with, be it ASCAP or BMI or CSAC or SOCAN, so that you can have that registered and you can collect publishing afterwards.
Got it. Okay, so how What Up Pitches and other sync licensing firms work is so instrumental in this process, because you have this checklist that is going to protect artists legally. Legally is the big one, right? Like basically you're protected, and no ad or film is going to use that track if all of those things aren't in order.
Yes. And we are not going to sign it to our catalog and pitch it to anybody unless all those things are in order. And that's why people trust us, because they know that.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I think so. Let me ask you this, because being, the word boutique, I like that because I consider my business what I do, boutique, bespoke. When you work with an artist, do you kind of help them go through that checklist and make the connections in case certain things aren't done? Like, you're not just give us your track that's already, ready to go and we'll just pass it along. There's some like artist development at play, it sounds like.
There is. If it's a new artist who we really want to work with and sign a bunch of their songs, then for sure we're going to talk with them and work with them. We put together a lot of educational panels, and we encourage people to come to those and to learn at those events. And so some of the people who come to us have already come in with that knowledge, or maybe it's recommended from a friend. And so in that case, we know they already have, that basic knowledge. And we can tell if they email us the track and they are able to upload all the appropriate information, they've already checked it all off for us. But if something's not adding up correctly, that's when we'll get on the phone and talk them through it.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, there is definitely a lot that goes into getting a song into a movie or an ad. I'm not a producer, so like to someone like me, that is it makes sense, but it's very shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so let me ask you this. Why do you think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's a ton of artists doing it, but why aren't all artists trying to use this as a potential revenue stream? Because I don't care who you are, going to play a show in a different city every night is not a sustainable lifestyle for anybody at the end of the day, if that's your only revenue driver.
Yes. Well, I think some are suspicious. Some maybe, have been burned before. I mean, there's a lot constantly changing in the industry. And I know we're not publishers, so we don't, but I know, and not to say negative things, there's some wonderful publishers out there, but there are some people who have been burned by situations where they signed an entire catalog and maybe nothing happened with it, and then they can't do anything with it. Or maybe they want to get it out, they want to collect their own publishing, but it was like signed forever and they can't. So there's just things to look out for, and I think people are cautious. But the most important is just to become educated, because that's becoming empowered. Once you learn about the business and understanding that the first contract that's offered to you may not be the best. And so take a step back and be excited, but also be realistic and read through and realize that there can be negotiation too. I remember when I first got into this myself, and I was signing with different sync licensing agencies, and I signed some non-exclusive deals because some are non-exclusive, some are exclusive. And I was talking with somebody about a deal, and they wanted to sign a few of my songs, and they said, well, this is our deal, and take it or leave it. And I said to them, well, I happen to know that, I've signed other deals that look like this. And then it was like not even minutes later, they're like, okay, fine, we'll do that. It just is eye-opening. I'm like, okay, wow. Like if you actually have a little bit of knowledge in your back pocket,
yeah,
that can go a long way. So it's just learning about it and being smart and understanding that everyone's not the right fit for you necessarily. And there are some bad eggs still out there. So you just have to kind of get to know the people and figure out where the best place to go.
Right. No, it's so true. It's, in any sort of art content creation, the contracts can be so predatory. And I think, one thing I talk about a lot on this show is like mindset and scarcity mindset. And I feel like a lot of artists who are, either desperate to get their name out there or they're desperate to make money are going to fall victim to some of those unfavorable deals. And so I love that you and your team put on those educational events because it's so important to know what you're getting into.
And I will add to that, because I've been in this for a while and I've fallen into a lot of things. I remember years ago, I paid somebody $1,000 to get my songs on, supposedly on some TV shows. And I thought they did. They said but I have no idea. I never saw proof, so there are still some pay to play type things where you can sign up and, maybe a monthly fee and they'll pitch your songs. And some of those can be legit, but, in general, if it's really well-established person, you shouldn't have to pay to play anymore. Like we're not asking any of our artists to pay us to pitch the songs. We are paid on commission. Right. So we're only going to get money if we place their song. So it's really not risky, especially if they're signing a non-exclusive contract.
Right.
Right. It's like there's no risk in that. We're just holding on the song and we're just pitching the song from our catalog, and if we get it placed, we send them money. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a sweet deal. So, okay. So being the agency that does submit the music, we talked about, the exclusivity can be a pitfall for some artists. I mean, unless it's like an amazing amount, a life-changing amount of money. And let me step back and say, I have, as a content creator, I've been pitched exclusive and non-exclusive deals or exclusivity within certain categories. And there's some that I have done exclusive that have made sense. So it's not like a one size fits all, but it really like you have to look at everything case by case. Is there anything else that sticks out to you that an artist, maybe it's a red flag if, an ad or a film like is, trying to kind of like sneak it into a contract that artists really need to be aware of?
Yeah, let me just clarify on the exclusivity too, because we do offer both deals.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some music supervisors that really prefer it to be exclusive. That simply means exclusive to our agency. So the artist can then pitch on their own, especially if they want directly. They can still present their songs. They can release their songs. It's just a matter of they can't sign another deal with another agency that's also pitching it. So there's no, the music supervisor isn't getting the same song pitched from a whole bunch of different people.
Got it.
So just to clarify on that. So on the question of if there's any red flags, so can you ask that again just to clarify what?
Yeah. So is there any red flag if someone's doing this on their own? I mean, obviously working with an agency like yourself, like yours is ideal, but if someone's trying to do this on their own or use one of their tracks to be used in a piece of content, TV, film, what should they be looking out for to make sure that they don't screw themselves, basically?
Yeah, there's probably a few key terms. In perpetuity would be one,
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, so it's just, if it's worldwide use, if it's, if it's a certain use, if it's on network television, like there should be a certain, I think the main thing is also if it's a buyout. Like if they're trying to buy the song from you, they better be paying you a lot. So, that's it. Like, this is your song. If you're getting your song licensed, that's one thing because you still own the song and then you can get it licensed again. But if they're asking for exclusivity in any manner or to buy out the song or to own it in some right, then that changes the whole thing. Like that should be a huge number and you need to be okay with, okay, I'm basically giving up this song, you know, or if it's exclusivity for just automobiles or something specific, that's okay too. But it should be a higher number.
Right. Yeah. And that's, relating to my experience as a content creator, that's some of the exclusivity clauses that I've dealt with. It's like, okay, well, you can't work with any other, brand in this supplement space or whatever it is. And, the money's got to make sense. But I, that one's a good one. The in perpetuity. Anytime I see those words, I'm like, red flag, throw it on the play. Like I've personally never come across a life-changing number that makes sense for me where those words, would be justifiable. So I think that's a good one. And of course, like we should say that any artist who listens to this always consult, whether it be an attorney or someone who just can help you navigate contracts, because they are very tricky.
Yeah, and it does depend on what's valued to you. Because if it's a buyout and if it's a song that you're like, I liked the song, but I can create more songs that I know are better. And if I do this, there's a benefit, in terms of publicity for me. Like it is a matter of weighing the pros and cons for yourself where you're at. So it's not always, a clear yes.
Right. And that you bring up a really good point because I have so many producer friends who just pump out music, like a track a week. And they are just sitting on some of these because it's either not the right fit for, a certain label that they want, or it just doesn't really like fit in with everything else they're doing. So would you say that is like, is it a feasible strategy? Because I feel like for the most part, music is pretty evergreen, right? Like you can't, sure, there's trends in pop and hip hop or whatever, but would you say that a dance music producer who's listening to this, maybe they have something that they made that never went anywhere, but it's a great track. Mm-hmm. Could they dig that out of the archives and say, hey, maybe this is something that someone would need?
For sure. Yeah. And if that track has vocals on it and they have the vocal and the instrumental and it's something that we can pitch, then, we could sign it. It's, we were just asked for dance tracks for an ad like 2 days ago. So that most definitely comes up for us. And then there's other libraries out there that have thousands and thousands and thousands of tracks. So if they have tons of instrumentals, they can put them in those libraries. And then, they have different deals. I know some of them probably collect on the publisher side, but if it's a matter of numbers and you've got all these tracks that are sitting, not being used, and you put them in, a quality library that's going to get them placed on reality TV shows, and then you're able to collect some of the back end, then, it's still worth it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what, just anecdotally talking to the people I know, it's just a knowledge gap. They just don't even realize that this is something they could do. Or maybe they think this is too big of a hurdle to tackle myself, and they don't know that an agency like yours exists. I heard, or I read a very surprising stat a couple weeks ago. The most recent one that I could find was from the International Music Summit in Ibiza. And their business report said that only 20% of dance music creators are supporting themselves full time from making music. And I believe 45% were making no money from making music. And these are people who are trying to make this a full-time thing. Yeah. And so it's so important to be able to find these different revenue streams, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially for these kinds of musicians, I feel like their music is so popular on a lot of shows that are out there right now and needed. So, it seems like this would be a great option for them to make money. And the reality of it is there's a big spread in terms of what you'll make, but you can, if you get a big placement, I got a song placed and used in a promo recently, and that's an $80,000 payout. Yeah. So, some of these are smaller, like, we just got a small radio placement for $3,000. Like, a lot of my songs have been used in reality TV shows, which is $1,000 each time. It just really depends. But when you get ads, $80,000 is nothing. For some ads, you'll get way more than that.
Wow.
So yeah, I know it blew my mind the first time I got any sort of placement. My very first one was a Sephora ad, and it wasn't a big one. It was like radio or something. So but it was still like $8,000. And come on, like, yeah, that's huge.
That it is. That's life-changing money for a lot of artists to make off of, what, not to say that making one track is easy, but if, what artists are making, what dance music producers are making off gigs, like I would say average, unless you are making more than $2,000 for a gig, you are most likely in the red. And a lot of artists do it because it's important to build their brand, to tour, to show legitimacy. So they stay in the red for quite some time until they can build up their credibility. So to get $8,000 off a track that they did not have to fly around, pay for flights, hotels, that's life-changing.
Yeah, and sometimes with the back end, I got a song used on the TV show Call Me Kat, which was on Fox for a few years. And I had the theme song for 2 years, for 2 seasons. And I think like the upfront amount was maybe $50,000. That doesn't mean that all went to me. I know, that's a lot. Well, there's something like that. But there's the commission from the agency. There's the split between me and my producer, right? But then the back end checks that kept coming in from ASCAP, like, it was so exciting. Every time I would see, okay, 8,000 here, like 20,000 here, I was kind of blown away that this actually works. I'm still sort of blown away that I'm doing sync licensing because, like I said, I knew nothing about this 7 or 8 years ago. Nothing. I honestly ignored the business side for years. I was just an artist. I didn't even want to go there. I just assumed, I remember feeling so jealous if I saw someone got a publishing deal. I'm like, oh, if only I could get that, right? And I honestly had no idea what that meant. I think that's sort of where I was at and where a lot of people are at. Unless you start to learn about, well, what is a publishing deal and is that something I really want? And then once you realize what's out there and then you focus on what you do want, you can get there, right? There's easy steps to once I started to learn about this, I started co-writing with other people who were already signed with sync licensing agencies. And I said, hey, I've got the song idea. Would you like to work on it with me? Because I couldn't afford to go and get all these songs produced. So I would split it with the producers. I split everything evenly. And then what happened was once I got my foot in the door with an agency, I was able to bring that to the table of, I have this connection. Hey, you're a great producer. Will you work with me on this track? And we'll split everything evenly and I'll pitch it to this agent.
Wow.
And that's how I got started. And then I started co-writing with as many different people as I could and just got to know a bunch of different agencies. And that's how I got to know the different deals and learn about the business. I knew nothing. So it still blows my mind that I'm where I am.
That's an incredible story of your journey. And what you said, I was just an artist. I didn't want to know the music business side, or I didn't know. That is the mindset that I think a lot of artists are in. And I understand it. I'm not a musician, but I understand it. You want to create your art, like to see it as a commodity, can feel icky. And, a lot of people throw the word sellout around. Oh, your show is, or your track is in this reality show. It's like, yeah. And I'm getting a check, and that check allows me to make the art that I, love to go play. It makes, getting paid $200 for this little gig sting a little bit less. Like I can actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I'm
so true. The authenticity thing. Like I still have songs that I put out there as an artist that, as a folk rock artist that are very much stories with very specific lyrics that are not going to have a chance in terms of getting a placement. And they're not even signed to my agency. And I don't care because that's not the point of those songs. And then I have other songs that I wrote for fun and they're just really pop songs. And those are the ones that I'm pitching and that are making money for me so that I can go and do what I want to do. And,
yes, 100%. The goal is obviously to get paid to make just the things that you like to make. That's everybody's goal. It's not always feasible. And if you have the talent and you can kind of give it over here where there's money to be made, and then you can, do your own art. I mean, that's great. I have a little series I do on Instagram that has no like monetary value to me. It's just me making mini documentaries on house music artists. And I pay way more to have those videos edited than anything else, but I love it. And it like feeds my soul. And it, I can do that because I do some of these other things. I work in some industries doing branding for, fintech. No, it doesn't excite me, but it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And so,
for sure. And there's certain things about sync licensing, which I tell people not to write for sync, but to write with sync in mind. And that's just a matter of when you're writing, just think about like, how can I make this hook, this lyrical hook really concise and really solid? And you can always make an alternate version. Like if you want to say it a certain way, that's fine. But if you want it to have potential for sync, it needs to have a really clear hook that's like repeated and, people can grab onto. It's got to probably have some vocalies, some oohs and ahs and woes. It needs to have breaks. Those are the editing points, right? If you look at the WAV file and it's solidly the same across, we don't want to sign that. We want to see that it goes up and down and moves, that it stops and then starts again, because that's what the editors need. If they're cutting your song for anything, for an ad, for whatnot, they need those spots, right? So It's just writing with sync in mind, knowing about certain things that, like, if you're going to go specific on lyrics, keep that in the verses, but don't put specifics. And just be aware, like, they're not going to place a song on a show if it's very specific about the exact place and someone's name. That's hard. That's much harder to place.
Right. That's a great tip because, dance music especially, I feel like now has no rules and people are exploring so many different, there's just a lot of cross-pollination of genres. So that's a good reminder that like, hey, there is a little bit more of a formula if you're going to want to make music for sync. So you kind of already touched on it already, but like, how much can an artist make off of sync licensing?
Well, there are certain artists that make placements, that get placements all the time. That have regular ad placements and that have just really figured this out. And I'm sure they make a living, and I'm sure they make a good, solid, over $100,000, 100,000, a year living. Like,
Six
it is
figures.
for sure. Yeah, exactly. Doable. So, I mean, it just depends on getting your foot in the door. And like I said, each solid song is a lottery ticket. So keep creating those and keep getting them out there and making sure that they're getting those opportunities.
I love that lottery ticket analogy. So if someone wanted to work with you with what up pitches or just get into sync in general, what are some basic steps that they can take to get themselves there?
Yes, that is a great question. So for us, like if you're going to approach us or any other agency like ours, you just need to know that we want you to show that you're professional. So it's ideal if you've already heard this, and you've already, got your split sheet, you've got any work for hire signs that you can say, hey, I've got, like, say, for example, you sent us an email. It would say one line about who you are, one streamable track. You would never send an attachment. It would always just be a streamable track, be it disco or Box or Dropbox, and just a few songs, and say that these are songs that I wrote, that I own completely 200%, or these are the different writers, these are the publishers, we're all self-published, or, just let us know who owns it, who owns the master. So we know, because if we just get a random email from somebody and it's a whole bunch of songs, even if they're great songs, I might not have time to go down that rabbit hole because I don't know you and I don't know,
right.
What if you have like 8 different writers on this, and what if there's 4 different publishers, and I have to then call every single publisher and find out if I can clear this song,
Yeah, that's great advice. And I've had lots of different music business experts on this show kind of say the same thing: is don't overcomplicate your email and don't make it hard for us. If you want someone to pay attention to you, you kind of have to make it easy, digestible, like give them the details, like put yourself in their shoes. Well, what would I want from someone if I was getting this email? What are the details that I need?
Yeah.
And that is something that everyone can always be better at, myself included. I always audit my emails before I send. I'm like, is there anything missing? Like where, you know what I mean? Like where there's going to be a question mark here. So working on your clarity and concision is always a good tip.
Yeah. And professional and respectful. I think sometimes people, first of all, doing your research, don't write to us and like, you can learn our names. Our names are out there. You can say hi to us as our names or what up pitches. But just knowing who we are a little bit about us, maybe I saw that you play songs on Love is Blind. I think this song might work for Love is Blind. That is one example of a little bit of research that someone could do. And also just being respectful in that if you write to us and we don't get back to you, it might not mean a thing. It might mean it was bad timing. A lot of it does come down to timing. So then you can respectfully write again in a few months. But don't just be pushy about it. Be like, hey, I sent you these songs. You didn't listen. Send us new tracks, and maybe we did check those out. Maybe they're like sitting on the side in the back of my head and I'm thinking about them in case something comes up for it. Right. So you don't really know. So I think instead of assuming or guessing, just send new fresh tracks and say, hey, I hope you're doing well. We just finished these 3 tracks, in case there's something that's helpful.
Yeah, it's great advice. I mean, you are a boutique agency. There's 3 co-founders, right? I mean, there's only so much of you to go around. And so, and I think any artist can understand that intimately. Like we're all juggling a lot. And so the respect thing is huge, and it does get you very far in life, whether with sync or anything else.
It does for sure. And so also educational opportunities, like I was saying, we offer those. So anytime they can come to our events, that's so important because you're going to learn something. We're going to see that you were there, and then we'll get to know people that way. We have listening fiestas. We have a few that we're going to announce soon that are coming up. And so those are opportunities to submit your music and have us and a music supervisor listen to your songs.
Right.
And they're free for anyone to come and listen to. And there's a few paid spots, which sell out very quickly. But if you get one of those, your song is guaranteed to listen. But we have a contest, which is also free. we listen through all the contest submissions. I'm always shocked when people don't submit because I'm like, why?
Right.
This is a free opportunity for us to hear your music.
Right.
And then, if you win the contest, then that's a free spot for you, for the music supervisor to also hear your music. So there's those. And then, I do other things around, just sort of around the city and with you. And we have a big event in the spring. So there's chances to kind of get to know us and to meet us in person or online. So
yeah. If you can meet someone that you want something from in person, it makes a world of difference, because connecting faces to names and just showing up and showing that you care enough to take time out of your schedule to be somewhere, it's so important. And of course, we're going to share all the links to all your events in my show notes. And this is a good time to wrap up and mention that you will be a panelist at Chicago Music Nexus, which I am stoked about, because that panel that you're on, monetizing your personal brand, that's my brain baby. My business partner and I, we had like a list of 10 panels that we wanted to do and had to whittle it down to 4. And, your expertise on that panel is so important, because this is a very viable, there's no excuse not to try this.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited for you to get to know some people in the dance music world. And we do have some vocalists that are coming too, who do a lot of vocals for dance music tracks. So I think this is a really great opportunity for those worlds to collide. And so anybody listening, if you want to come meet Celia, you have the opportunity to do so at one of the What Up Pitches events or at Chicago Music Nexus on November 23rd.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been so informative. I learned a lot today. I know my audience is going to be stoked to hear this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to add one more thing, just as a reminder to people that it's a marathon and not a sprint. And I was in this for 2 years before I got that first placement. And that just needs to be thrown out there, because I was pitching my stuff. I was trying to get it. And I'm thinking, gosh, I know these are quality recordings, because I put a lot of money into that. So it wasn't a matter of that. It just wasn't the right fit. And so I actually started from scratch after I learned about sync licensing. I put my last 4 albums to the side and I started writing from scratch with people that I met in an online class. And those are the songs that started getting placed. So I think taking a step back and listening to what's actually being used, and then creating, in a smart manner with sync in mind, will really get you going in the right direction.
I love that advice. When you're in the daily grind, 2 years seems like forever, but you'll look back and be like, that wasn't that long at all.
And you do a little bit of anything every day and you get there. So just start.
100%. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, you're going to have a chance to meet Celia at Chicago Music Nexus, which is coming up very soon. Remember what she said about etiquette? Emailing and how to approach someone like her or someone else in sync. Well, this is your chance to leave a good impression at Chicago Music Nexus, because if you're there, it is a guarantee that you care and are invested in your career's success and longevity. And listen, I picked someone to be on this show and on my panel from a boutique agency for a reason. I have a lot of experience working with a variety of different service-based companies in and out of music. And in my experience, a boutique agency is going to give you the attention that you deserve. They are going to guide you through certain processes when you have questions. They're not going to leave you on red, but that also means that you have to give as much as you take from them. It's a symbiotic relationship. So if you want your chance to be put directly in front of people like Celia, Chicago Music Nexus is the place to be. And she mentioned this a couple times in our conversation that, dance music tracks aren't as often needed as some tracks with vocals. But think about that. Your lane is not as crowded when you work with someone like What Up Pitches. So that is a massive benefit to you. So don't see it as a detriment, see it as an opportunity. Again, I am still running the podcast promo for you guys only, not putting this on social media. The code podcast gets you $30 off your ticket. I hope to see you guys there. I hope you guys have a great week. Stay elevated, and I'll talk to you next Thursday.